Yo, yo. Oh, I'm on too little sleep, Yo, yo, humvare. Yo, era, sharum, brunenji. Yo, era, sharum, brunenji. The ocean, it's like the Giga Shadow. It is the end, and it is the beginning. And that would be very funny if you've seen Tales from a Parallel Universe, also known as Lex on the Sci-Fi Channel. But if not, it probably just sounds really weird. But weird is necessary. As is this channel, and as is your participation, possibly, if anyone actually joins us for the live stream. And as is the viewing of anyone who wishes to, save the world and continue breathing and that kind of thing. Yep. My weirdness is very necessary. And this video is going to be about, well, why I do what I do. Why investing and investing. My projects is worthwhile. Why supporting this channel and my projects is worthwhile. And why I'm the right person for the job, even though I'm well aware that I can't do it all myself. And also why my particular solutions are the game changer, and why everything else is going to wind up being too little too late. So, thanks for joining me. Stay tuned. Welcome to Easy Reavers. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is, wherever you are. And g'day, mates, if you're joining me from Australia. And welcome to the Easy Reefers Coastal Restoration Fish Room. Today I've got a lot to talk about. And so much to do, but all I can do is talk at this point. And it's gone from frustrating to just plain depressing, I tell you. Because, people not listening to your warnings, that's frustrating. But then seeing the green slime take over all of the bays in Florida and all of the beaches just plopping up dead animals with every wave. It's just depressing. Anyways, I'm going to try not to be too depressing on this video. We've got way too much to talk about, way too much to cover, and I got to try to maintain some sort of energetic focus here, being as I've at this point been up for about 20 hours. Not too bad, but it's a bit past my bedtime, or whatever. I don't really have a bedtime, but suffice to say, I've been up since, about 22 hours. Yeah. I've been up since about 12:30 yesterday, and it's currently 9:30 here, so 21 hours. Let's do the math in our heads, shall we? But anyways, oh man, I guess the first thing I'd like to talk about is my online persona as it relates to business endeavors. Well, the thing is, my online persona, if actually invested in, would be quite useful. Quite useful. That is to say that there are, I have notes to try to keep myself remotely on track while I spew out my thoughts and try not to be nervous. What you need, first of all, if you're looking to fix a problem and you've been going at it the same way for years, been trying the same thing over and over again, that's actually, if you're expecting a different result as opposed to just acquiescing to the tedium, it's kind of the definition of insanity. I, on the other hand, while I may appear crazy to some people, by definition, I'm one of the few sane people left on this planet. As crazy as I try to be just for fun, you know? Now, think of it this way. I am not the owner of an established facility. Okay? I am not a PhD. Okay? I have never marched with the infantry, flown towards the enemy, or shot the artillery. But as far as saving the world goes, I'd make a good mercenary. I planned that out earlier. I was slightly proud of it, but now I'm having doubts. Anyways, so if you're wondering where I'm looking at that tank, which is that way. And when I look here, that's me. Well, that's me. Well, me, but down there, where so I can make sure my face is actually on the camera from time to time. And then over there, where I keep looking while I gather my thoughts, is... Come on. The reef tank. And as you can see, the lights are way brighter and the camera is not set for that, so we're going to go back to this one. And the camera's going to be level. I repeat, the camera's going to be level. Be level, camera. Okay. Anyways. So, what I was saying is that, you might be one of the board members of a big foundation or the owner of a existing business investment group, research center, what have you. You may be one of the people who's, somebody's cousin who got a job because they won an election in a little local town and don't know really what the hell to do when it comes to the environment, and look at it as a completely political issue, and don't even realize that A, you have a moral responsibility, and B, there's money to be made, son. Oh, excuse me. Welcome to the Easy Reefers channel, where in order to be understood, I will now be speaking like a British news reporter. Now everything I say will begin like this and end like this, so that no matter if I'm making sense, you'll know that I've made a point. Even if it doesn't make any sense, you'll think it did because I sound smart. Nah, fuck all that. I'm from Louisiana. I did, however, live in Australia and New Zealand as a child. I still have my passport. I'm a permanent resident of New Zealand, actually. I don't know if that's still valid. I don't really know what that means. It says it on the passport. That's all I really know. But born in New Orleans, Louisiana, in America. And what you need, if you're the professor or the coastal researcher or the existing, I mean, there's people making biodiesel out of algae. That's a very useful business. I mean, there's a lot of very productive individual people right now. But they don't have a master plan. And they don't have the proper outreach. They don't have the, what is it? They don't have an ad for which to target with. You know, it's not a matter of they don't know what targeted ads are. They don't have a strategy to put forth to actually get this on people's minds and make it relevant to their lives, put it in their focus and make it a concern for them. Okay? Now, basically what I'm telling you, if you're one of these many people all over the world who are concerned with this subject, is that you need someone who can speak crazy American. Yeah. Not just American, you know. And not just redneck. But someone who can speak crazy American. And I think the evidence of this has been made clear with how divided things have become politically. But we don't talk about politics on this channel anymore. So, I'm not going to go into that. But, suffice to say, discourse has become the epitome of hyperbole. It's become the epitome of hyperbole. It's just gotten to where you have to have a plot and a storyline for people to really take hold of and grasp a concept as simple as, if you don't do this, we'll all die. No, that's not interesting enough. I've heard that before. As sad as that sounds, it's true. Now, what I have basically observed myself to be is someone capable of reaching out to many different groups and getting them interested in a productive way of looking at things. And, you know, I often get myself into arguments with my wife and previous women, and even well, sometimes friends, but without even taking a point of view, simply playing, not devil's advocate, but just analyzing the alternative reactions that different major groups of people would have, you know. And there needs to be someone, and I'm certainly trying to be the someone, because I see myself as qualified in some, remote way. To reach out to people, whether they're cool, Christian, conscientious, or just conservative, or plain old corrupt. Everybody but the commies. No, even the commies are, I don't know. They start with a C, so we'll let them fit into the list. Yeah, makes perfect sense to me. Anyways, I have a little notepad here. It's just got some random hieroglyphs that I call handwriting. See, writing upside down and backwards is far too difficult. All you need is just really shitty handwriting. You can have your own secret code. Anyways. So much easier to collect my thoughts and, talk to a person or two people or something like that than to sit here and ambiently speak into a live recording. I made the notes, but there's only so much help that I can provide. But here's the deal. There is a clear set of problems and a clear set of solutions. But there's a lot of different people who see a lot of different things a lot of different ways in this world. So you have to understand, how do you reach out to each of these major groups, especially the real stubborn ones, who by the foundational system of their beliefs, which is essentially apocalyptic, they don't give a shit. Hey, look, I poo, it goes in the water goes away. Huh? Yay, God. Right? Oh, bless their hearts. That's what humans seem to think, for the most part. Rivers are just, poo portals. And rain is just a bird shit rinse, just cleans off your driveway for you, right? Water is for example, well, it's in the Bible. Yes, water is in the Bible. Now, why is that relevant? Well, it's because it's in the beginning and the end. And what I mean by that is that in the Christian Bible, in the end, the prophet John, whoever he was given his revelation by the, quote, angel of the waters. But in the beginning of the Bible, not just the Christian Bible, but basically in the beginning of monotheistic faith, in the book of Generations, it says that the Spirit of God hovered over the surface of the waters. And then, before man was created, it rained down on dust on the ground. So water was involved in the creation of the universe. And then the firmament rose from the midst of the waters. And then even man was created with rain and dust to make clay. Water. And in science, well, jeez, in science, there's fucking laryngitis going around. Hold on, I gotta cough up a lung right quick. Okay. So, whew. In science, water is also the beginning of life. All life that evolved came out of the ocean. Life itself evolved in the ocean. That's where you get the conditions for single-celled organisms, right? Okay. I don't believe that that's possible without a conscious being guiding it, but what do I know? Anyways, all I'm saying is that if you hock a loogie and electrocute it for 1,000,000 years, or 1,000,000,000 years, or 1,000,000,000,000 years, it's just going to be electrocuted loogie. Anyways. But I understand, biology. Been reading up on that since I was a wee lad. When most people were out doing, fun things, I liked books. Books with pictures in them. If it didn't have some sort of a scientific diagram or biological this or that, or dinosaurs, I wasn't interested. Oh, I loved the dinosaurs when I was little. But since living off the shore of Wirral Bay, which is right by Princess Bay, which more people know about, New Zealand, south coast of Wellington, basically. And just being fascinated for hours on end. While my sisters were playing in the waves and everything, I was just sitting there staring into the tide pools. Just squatting, trying not to fall in, getting as close as I could. Until they bought me a surfboard, and then I actually did go in the water a bit more. But that really wasn't until the last few months, couple of months maybe. That we live it there. So from then, keeping fish tanks since I was 7 years old, helping my dad build aquariums by cutting glass that we got from, I think it was the Home Depot that was right around the corner. We'd made 3 different large fish tanks. 2 identical, very long ones, and 1 cube. Only one of the long ones did we set up at that house, but he set up the other one for his new wife later on. Never mind. Could have been a joke, but I'm too bitter to make it there. Anyways. So, all in all, let me just put it this way. That Picasso trigger right there is Pete the 7th. I've been keeping fish tanks, saltwater aquariums in general, living reefs even, since 1980. 87 at the earliest, but 88 for sure. Because, oddly enough, the only reason why I remember so clearly when and where I was because of what I got for Christmas that year. Because it was the funnest toy I ever freaking had. Which was a Tyco Turbo Aero Hopper, little remote controlled electric car. And it was a happy little beast for back in the day. Being cheap kids' toys, not one of them fancy, crazy, got the big deal thing. No, just 2 little joysticks, just a little kid's toy, but a nice one. And it was fun, man. And I remember that house that we lived in, that was where we built them fish tanks. And I got my experience with building a sump system and everything in 87. And then by 88, probably still in 87, but by 88 at the latest, I had my own 10-gallon tank. Okay? Now, I am not 40 years old yet. Okay? I'm not going to give you my exact age, but I wasn't even, I was like 7 or 8 years old, okay, keeping fish tanks. Nobody helping me, just taking apart the little aqua filters on my own, like everything. Just nobody showing me nothing. Got the book, got it done. Been teaching my dad ever since. Yeah, he knew how to cut glass. And he came up with the design for the sump and everything, and I learned that from him. But everything about the life, everything about the biology, I learned from books. And there's a lot of different people who can learn a lot of different things from a lot of different books. Okay? Which is why I like to read many different things. I don't consider science as detracting from faith. I don't consider it competition either. I just consider it to be another way of looking at things. Now, in the Bible, and I went to a lot of Bible studies. I grew up in church and all that good stuff. In the Bible, things that reoccur in the beginning and the end are important. And there isn't a single spiritual system on the planet that will disagree about how important water is. The ocean itself. The ocean as a spiritual thing. The living thing that is the ocean. And there's a reason for that. Because it is the beginning and the end. You see, when I was persistently warning about red tides, right before this giant fucking red tide happened, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Sorry. So anyways. I'd warned people about the red tides right before it happened. And basically wasn't able to get any sort of outreach. I just felt like I just got a really weird feeling just now. And it has completely thrown me off what I was saying. Très bizarre. Like, that was sudden. I'm so sorry for just losing my focus there. waiting for a text message or a phone call or something. Like, what the hell? Okay. Let's see if my notes will save me. No. There was a specific point. It wasn't about, like, I fucking warned people and just that. That was leading into something else. Anyways, hi to the people that are watching right now. So, we just get back to how incredibly important the ocean is. It really is not like where life comes from in a way that we have to figure out like it's some puzzle in evolution. Okay? But it's where life comes from, as in it's where habitability of this ecosystem comes from. And when the ocean, as an organism, as a bloodstream of the planet, dies, you're looking at no more mammals above 60 pounds. It's just the way it is. So unless you're a midget, you're SOL. It just came out. I didn't really think about that before I said it. I apologize. But essentially, what I said back in what was it, March? Starting in March, making it a central focus of all of my business plans here, is that the ocean processes most of the oxygen that we breathe. So if you eliminate most of the oxygen, basically we are, not there yet. Right now we're in like a holding tank, and we're just burning up the O2 with minimal replacement. And trees and grass, they do a little, but they don't do a lot. Okay? So here's the thing. The oceans cover over 70% of the world, right? But think about this area right here, where the sun travels across. Where the most photosynthesis happens seasonally. Okay? Not a lot of land there. And now I'm missing Europe, but you have the Mediterranean right there, and then you have the Sahara. So What am I really missing? All them big forests in Saudi Arabia? No. I cut this for looks, and the rest of it's over there. But I had to cut off a bit just to fit it in this frame. So wanted to talk about Australia, so this is where I wanted it centered, but I'm going to talk about how it all ties in together in just a second. You see, along this belt here, this being the Mercator projection, it's still somewhat inaccurate, but that's where you have your rainforests. That's where you have your coastal plains that are productive. But that's also where you have a lot of desert and just arid, shitty, dried out crap. Okay. So what percentage of that is ocean? So there's an incalculable number here that we were unable to establish as a baseline for one of the most critical things we need to know about our environment. Okay? And that is how much photosynthesis does the ocean provide relative to land? Is it an even split? Is it 73-27, or is it 98-2? Was it 98-2? Now is it 50-50? Is it less? You see, stuff burns. I just burnt stuff. You realize that? That's because my lungs are made of the fire element. No. But I just inhaled oxygen and exhaled what? Carbon dioxide. So I effectively just burnt something, right? Using oxygen to react with sugars and releasing electric energy, basically. And burn something else. Not that. Not even one of my little shitty rolled ones. And now, you can limit to a very, to a very small degree the amount of pollution coming from factories and cars and things like that as a whole. You can mitigate those things individually, but that is done at the same time as population growth and economic growth basically makes it nil. Like, just a completely useless endeavor. Okay. Because the real plot is being completely ununderstood. Stuff burns, man. Nothing you can do about it. People poo. Nothing you can do about it. The things we eat, they poo. Our cars, it poos. Everything's pooing. If you drive a car too fast, you and the car poo at the same time. Especially if it's a diesel. Or you've been drinking diesel. But, anyways. The one thing you can do, aside from what you can here and there, limiting the emissions, is make sure that the ocean, the lifeblood of the planet, is capable of processing the stuff that burns. That's because how big that band is. Now, I've got an extensive plan that I've spent almost a decade working on how to get people of every economic level not just interested, but productive and even economically self-sustaining when it comes to addressing this problem. But if we don't address it, what's going to happen is the ocean is going to continue to acidify. And the oxygen-producing macroalgae that sustain life on this planet, that is, any mammal or reptile above 60 pounds, if it wants to be able to breathe, needs the ocean to have a pH above 8.1. Okay? Actually, just picturing that on average would be horrible now that I said it, but needs to have a nice, high alkaline, wonderful, beautiful reef water. Yeah. Sorry, I'm kind of stuck to a train of thought here and trying not to lose it. I'll get to your comments in just a second there. But, anyways. So, the macroalgae that require higher alkalinity and calcium. Okay. They can survive in fresh water temporarily. Okay. But what happens is these things lose their structure and begin to grow algae the more the pH is reduced. Now, let me just show my tank again, because right now my tank is less than pristine, so it's a perfect example of basically how the ocean has been looking lately. Although my tank looks a little better. Well, this tank looks a little better. So these big wavy algae, because of my alkalinity taking a dip, they've got a little bit of hair algae and cyanobacteria. That's red tide cyanobacteria growing on just the tips of the leaves. And if I don't address the problem, which I have been over the past several hours before filming, what'll happen is that algae will continue to consume and degrade the macroalgae. So I'm talking about little single-celled hair algae that just kind of clumps on, plus cyanobacteria. So what happens is the hair algae will pile onto itself, or some sort of decaying matter will decompose. And because of the low alkalinity and the high acidity and the high carbon dioxide content of the water, you'll get these little brown, like sometimes greenish hair algae that form on top of things. And they form these little layers of decomposing matter because they grow on top of themselves. And whether they grow on algae or they grow on coral, whatever they grow on, if it's photosynthetic, it dies. And they continue to grow, and what's underneath them dies because it's deprived of light. The thing is, eventually, cyanobacteria takes over. And that's because of the phosphates in the water that, are because of my amount of fish and the fact that I keep breeding pairs of clownfish in here. And, just, I have a relatively small system compared to the ocean here, right? That cyanobacteria starts growing on top of the algae, growing from the decomposing algae, then making the algae decompose. And then pretty soon it takes over the process of photosynthesis, where at first this highly productive macroalgae was very efficiently converting carbon dioxide into oxygen. Then this algae started taking over, and it still converted a little bit of oxygen, right? But then as the phosphates increased, and you can see the reddish brown on my glass on the back where I used to have coralline algae. They used to all be pink coralline algae back there. You can see a little bit of it underneath there, but this tank has become a fine example of what our oceans are turning into. And that cyanobacteria, what it does is it actually makes the problem worse. Now, it can attach and it can float freely. When you have it on the glass, you have it in the water, but because we use protein skimmers and keep the water moving and stuff like that, you don't really see it in the water. It doesn't get thick enough in the water. But if you take the protein skimmer off to this tank, if you take your protein skimmer off of the tank, in a tank that has cyanobacteria, put it in a clear glass, you will see what you see in the ocean is red tide. You will see this brown, orangish, ugh. You'll just say, ugh, and then you go buy a fucking protein skimmer is what you'll do. I name it ugh, because that's what it looks like. It looks like ugh. Anyway. So this cyanobacteria, unlike algae, it doesn't consume carbon dioxide. It consumes oxygen. It consumes lots of oxygen. In fact, it consumes so much oxygen, there have been red tides happening over lakes, and in some cases vast parts of smaller bays, that have caused birds to suffocate as they tried to dive for food. Not like drown, I mean suffocate, and then they just fall into the water. That is because even a stagnant surface of the water, okay, exchanges oxygen and carbon dioxide with the atmosphere constantly. And the more ripples, the more current there is, the more the exchange. So you can imagine in the ocean with all the waves and all the bubbles, and there's a lot of exchange. Okay. You don't need to have a breaking wave to have exchange. But see the wave across my tank right there? Is it on? There you go. See, it didn't break. And come to think of it, I need to face that power head up a little bit. But I don't think oxygenation is my issue here. I'm running a multi-tank system here. But anyways, so in a nutshell, you can't do anything about the human population and the negative effects that it's gonna contribute. But you have to make sure that that damage is being constantly absorbed and processed. Okay? Now, I just ordered my my little deionization resin for my top off water. And one of my problems here is my RODIs freaking, oh god, I waited way too long to change my DI resin. Okay. And you know where we have most of our sewage going, humans that is, and where we have most of our cows and pigs and everything, and our crops being fertilized, where we dump most of our phosphates and nitrates is in the rivers. And those rivers, usually most of them, they branch out into coastal marshlands. Okay. And what we got to do is make sure our top off water is clean. It's all about the rivers. See? Carbon emissions, deforestation, all that stuff needs to be constantly kept as good as we can keep it. Okay? But if we keep letting our river water run unclean into the oceans will continue to die. Okay? Now, therein lies my idea for opportunity here. Okay? The people trying to restore the Great Barrier Reef are having a hell of a time. And they're winding up fighting unnecessary political battles and being seen unnecessarily as political, and business wants to be business, and it's just pointless nonsense that doesn't need to be an argument. There is no quarrel here because there is so much money to be made by addressing this problem properly. Now, basically what I've designed primarily for my hands-on application. I'm not going to sit there and listen to is a for-profit maricultural facility that has a byproduct of coastal restoration resources like mangrove trees. Okay, mass-producing mangrove trees in a multifunctional greenhouse-like building. but one that's completely storm-proof so that it can be built in shitty coastal areas. Okay. I designed the entire facility. It's also based around an entire building company, which is going to not only provide most of the buildings for most of the solutions that I don't, want to have under, I like to breed clownfish. Okay, that's what I want to do. But I have ways of growing lots of different types of food in lots of different ways that are effectively net positive ecological impact systems. Okay? Most of these are designed to go along rivers. And, before marsh areas, and designed to grow materials for marsh and coast restoration, and then, further inland, primarily just for food. But when you're talking about brackish water, there's not a lot of different food that you can grow, but you can grow mangrove trees like a son of a bitch if you can find another way to fund it. And that's one of the things I've done. And it's not something that I plan on keeping unique. My facility design and all of the other designs and things that I have planned are what I consider proprietary. But the idea that fish breeders should be using some sort of massive mangrove tree grow out system and then donating those trees to their states, Florida, Dustin, Dorton, can fucking the guy from ORA, if he and other big fish breeders would just set up rows and rows of mangrove production to help filter their fish poo, they could help restore the coast of Florida. But so let's see. Without actually looking at my proposal summary, thinking of the different projects I have in mind, basically, dock systems that provide flow through filtration, then utility, then filtration, kind of. And these filtration processes are productive. And the only thing that really needs to cost any money is the calcium carbonate needed for the alkalinity boost that we definitely need to start having in every single river on the planet. Okay. And basically what I'm saying is take big fucking bricks of calcium carbonate, put them in giant baskets on docks sitting in rivers, and let the river pass through it and just dissolve the calcium carbonate before it goes into the ocean. Before it goes into the marshlands, you'll see the marsh grass improve in health. Hi, honey.
Hi.
So, you're hovering over me with the package.
I'm trying to hover over you, I'm sorry. I just like looking at you, you're pretty.
I wish you could show the viewers how pretty your hair looks.
I got so many compliments when we were out earlier today. Like the lady at Walmart, we went in through the garden center. She was like, "Oh my God, I love your hair." Which made me happy.
So, anyways, now the thing is, you got to have a way to pay for the good that you want to do. Okay? Which means that you got to find ways to make money. And clownfish don't sell enough. You know? Now, one solution that I like to focus on is getting people into the idea of aquariums being the best way to teach their children how the world works ecologically. It's, I fully intend to do a top 10 reasons why you need a fish tank. Lainey, and kitten scratching on the couch isn't one of them. But it needs to be, something that a political candidate tells people to, go out and get a freaking saltwater fish tank. But that can only go so far, Only so many people are going to realize the aesthetic value, the educational value, the challenge, and the sense of accomplishment that comes from owning a saltwater reef tank. Okay. But since 2011, when the Fukushima tsunami disaster thing happened, I sat and watched every single video. And, well, one of the other things I've been doing since I was a kid was drawing houses. Like sketching, architectural sketches of houses. And I had, just kind of the urge to plan out a house that would survive something like that. I saw the way these houses got tossed around and crunched into each other. And I wanted to make a building. Not expensive. If you wanna throw money at a problem, you can throw money at a problem. Okay? I'm talking about something that anybody can afford. If anything, something so cheap that it could be used in disaster relief applications, small business applications, and well, those were just the initial concepts, but what I came up with even has military applications. And the reason why is because these structures are not only disaster proof. I mean, there's a flood proof version that looks just like a normal house, but there's a flood proof and wind proof version, so a hurricane proof version that could withstand a tsunami and would be a very good lifeboat to be swept away in, even if that were to happen. This house would crunch into other people's houses. Sorry, house. My house is better. You know, that kind of house. And I've priced it out board by board on the specific one that I need for my mariculture facility, but it's, you know, certainly house size. I've got some different little sub-designs of it as houses and duplexes and even barns.
And beach houses too, don't forget about beach
Yeah,
house.
the duplex beach house, yeah. But the thing is, what I came up with ranges from sheds to luxury homes that are basically yachts once they get floated. If, you know, you choose your height. How high do you want to resist the water? How high do you want to have the home up? How high do you want to resist the water? And then how high do you want to just be set free? You know, because if this is going to turn into ocean, then it's going to turn into ocean, and you don't want to be standing around waiting for other things to come crashing into you. You want to turn your little house into a boat, right? But even when it came to, you know, like the classic cars, like people worked on cars for years, you know, old Corvettes and Mustangs, just flooded. Imagine if they had a shed that would just go, just raise up. Not expensive, not poles, not some fancy foundation underneath the ground. And the buildings, every single one of them, made with modular interchangeable parts, pre-assembled, delivered to the site, and then assembled probably in about a weekend. The goal being 48 hours. Every roof, every wall, everything comes as a collection of different segments, basically. And this becomes a business model that reduces costs, improves profit, and creates an opportunity to serve other building contractors that aren't doing buildings based on this disaster-proof model. Yeah, it's an earthquake-proof, crack-proof, interconnected pylon foundation. Okay? And the house floats up within the center of it. Now, the trick to building a house like that without having my patented foundation, just to making a cheap floating house, is to make the bricks of the house stationary and the house float inside of the bricks. What you don't want is to be relying on a few fucking metal poles while there's high current and debris fucking knocking on your house. Okay? So, if you want to build something like that, just bear in mind. Bricks on the outside, house on the inside. Not connected. House floats up. House floats down. No foundation work required. You can just build a brick house around your house, or build some nice stone pillar pylons in the corners. You know, make them big, make them sturdy, because there's a reason why the pyramids have stood for so long. So the more you can build something like a pyramid, the longer it's going to stay there, isn't it? Anyways. So, the ability to fabricate housing and production facilities and commercial facilities that are for sale, businesses in a box, and made-to-order homes and just buildings. That's where you enter into the realms of a business that has enough profit to promote an idea as well as fund the other basic materials to help restore these coastal areas. It's hard to convince a government to buy a bunch of rocks to sit there and float in a river. Okay, I mean, doesn't that just sound difficult? But if you say disaster-proof flood-proof, you say it, maybe I shouldn't.
Disaster, flood-proof?
Disaster-proof, flood-proof buildings that are economical and, also have food-producing models. Like, one of these buildings can just be sat there and produce food for this town.
Like a giant greenhouse.
An aquaponic. A storm-proof aquaponic facility. Okay? That's just one of many designs.
Yes, I buy him a sketchbook every 6 months, just so y'all know. Like every 6 months, like clockwork, I buy a sketchbook.
I have a stack of them right there.
Yes.
Full.
And it's probably about 6 months now. I need to go get you a new one.
This one's doing good because I got on the digital. I spent so much time on the digital business plan that spared the sketchbook for a while. So anyways. Alright, let me catch up on the comments. I think I've pretty much... Yeah. See, this is the mercenary approach I was talking about. This is the other end of the spectrum that needs to come to reality. Okay? To, defeat any enemy with overwhelming odds, you need to have some sort of a pincer movement. You need to have two prongs to the effort. And on the one side, trying to get people to restore the coast is one thing. But on the other side, you have to get a business going around coastal restoration. Okay? Now, what better business than buildings designed to be built along the coast? So in these coastal areas where this work is needed, that's where these buildings are needed. And in addition to that, there's a lot of different ways that this business, that the building business, can provide simple mom and pop investors, landowners, anybody along a river or a stream, basically, to produce food in a way that they don't need a bunch of insurance on, basically. Okay? And I'm talking, fish and produce in the same system for poverty-ridden areas, a house that does this. Okay? Also a disaster-proof house that, grows the families that lives in its food, basically. What the hell more could you ask for?
The only thing that could be better than that is a house that craps money for you.
Yeah. It doesn't shit money. But
Close enough.
speaking of shit, this company, this YouTube channel, this whole project, this whole endeavor, that I'm getting lots of different people's helps on, because I can't freaking possibly do this all myself. I'm like organizing and delegating and getting different people I've known for years interested in helping with different parts of this, and it's it's a way to get people interested. It's a way to get people needed. I mean, people to be aware of how needed it is.
Well, what the sad part is that with the flood that we had here in Louisiana 2 years ago, that was devastating. I mean, they called it the 1,000-year flood, for God's sakes.
Right.
And then you had Harvey and what it did in Houston. And
that was
think,
right as I was
the thing
bringing this whole thing up.
But the thing is, you would think with all these disasters happening so close, as like we had the flood and then the following year was Harvey, you would think more people would be interested in this.
Right.
Especially as much money as the states are having to put out. And flood insurance around here, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day because, we just had this storm, the threat of this last storm, Gordon, coming through. And I was talking to one of my friends that I do work for, and she was telling me that flood insurance out where she is useless because she lives in a trailer that's not quite as high as where we are, but it's a little high, steps to get in and everything. So the inside of her house didn't flood, but everything in her shop, everything outside, kind of like what we had. And her flood insurance didn't cover anything because she did not get a drop of water in her house, so they wouldn't give her any money. She got no help from FEMA, no help from the flood insurance, so she was paying flood insurance and didn't get help when she actually flooded. Like, it's ridiculous. And you would think more people would be on board to save money, save the government money, our state's money.
Now, like septic systems. Did you know that outside of your city where they have codes and shit, that people don't have to have septic systems? The poo just goes into something, and then when it rains, it just
Overflows.
goes down where rain goes and
into the rivers, which deposit into the Gulf, which deposits into the ocean.
Probably flows right through your nice clean city.
Or at least underneath it.
But again, there's things that can be done. If a business were to become profitable and therefore powerful around influencing people, like, public service is always good. Providing information to people is always a good marketing strategy, And if you can provide information to people that helps them figure out, hey, you know how you're just pooing, right? Did you ever think you could just build something on top of that and grow food out of it? It's the circle of life, baby.
Right. What do you think fertilizer is made out of?
You can turn your poo into profit.
Actually.
It's weird, but it's true. I could just picture a lovely terraced garden. And you could introduce it as your septic system. This is my Japanese terraced poo pond. But you see, it doesn't have to be that way. There are ways that you can rig a house's plumbing to where it sort of becomes a little poo sprinkler system. And the actual smell never makes it out of the ground.
What a concept.
Right? So anyways, I'm going to stop daydreaming about poo pipes. Okay, now I'm done.
Y'all see what I put up with, right? Hour-long conversation about poo pipes.
But anyways, so basically, to get started, and this is why I continue to ask for your support on patreon.com/easyreefers, and if you notice, there is an investors package there. Excuse me. We will be acquiring land in the name of a to-be-established charity. Okay? And that charity will then basically lease some of the land, sell some of the land, use some of the land. Okay? And one of these plots that they're going to use is going to be the purpose-related investment known as the Easy Reefers retail store. Okay? And basically, this coastal and reef restoration charity is going to have a for-profit business that is going to serve as its headquarters, like they're going to be able to have meetings there. The charity itself is going to be, either the charity is going to be out of my name or the business is going to be out of my name. But I'm more leaning towards the charity being out of my name. I want basically a separate treasurer. Make sure everything's copacetic. I got a friend in the IRS. I'm going to wind up asking for guidance on everything. I've already ran a lot of stuff by him. But I'll probably just wind up getting a lawyer, accountant. Who do I need, honey?
We definitely need an attorney to oversee everything. just to have on standby. We're going to need a treasurer, because with my eyesight the way it is, I'm probably not in the best position to do it. I got a couple people in mind I'm talking to about that.
So the direct investors to Easy Reefers will be buying certain shares of the overall ownership, and then a certain share of the overall ownership of the retail store is reserved for the charity. And then, in addition to the profit percentage that the charity will receive from the Easy Reefer store, the Easy Reefer store is also, because, why not, is going to donate the allotted maximum 10% of their profits. And basically the whole business model is going to be designed around donating 10% of the profits to the Easy Reefers charity. Legally, a business cannot own a charity, even if, the whole design is to donate profits. But a charity can perfectly legally own a business. So that's why we're going to have the charity establish the business. And I'm going to be owning a percentage of the business. And I'm hoping that at least gets me a place on the board of the charity. I can't be the treasurer. I know that much.
Yeah, but you can be the president.
Yeah.
Oversees everything.
No, I'd have to be like a vice president or something. I can't be the president. You could be the president.
Oh yeah, blind chick being the president to a charity. I'm my own charity case, okay? At the moment. Sorry, I digress. As long as I don't have to read stuff.
Speaking of reading stuff, whoa, this guy's chatting a lot. So yes, nobody cares unless you can make a profit, that's for sure. Yeah, that would take money. Yeah, let me get whatever. Yep, the ocean is looking like poo compared to this tank, and this tank is not pretty. Oh, appreciate it. He's been following the channel for a while.
Awesome. Well, welcome. Thank you for coming in and chatting with us.
I know we got a few silent viewers, but it's nice when people finally put in the work that it takes to be able to actually chat and comment on YouTube, for freak's sake.
Right. And as you'll find out, Sean
unless you're a Russian troll, then you just clock in.
And Sean's very interactive with chat comments, as long as it's relevant to the point that he's talking about. Notice I said as long as it's relevant.
Yeah, what I'd like to do, one of the things with the store is basically have a manned 24-hour live stream help chat for reef aquarists. And basically, the more work that requires, the more money it's going to make. So I don't see really a problem with manning it.
Well, I see a slight problem, but that's our own issues that we have with YouTube.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing when your view count goes up but your revenue goes down. That makes perfect sense.
Well, yeah. But we're not talking about that because this is the
Easy
Reaper channel.
Sorry. I digress. A lot.
Anyway. So this guy's got fish tanks. That's cool. I hope to have the time to check it out. Too bad I would never see just a random independent person with common interest recommended on YouTube. It used to happen. I wonder why that doesn't happen anymore. But we're not talking about that. We're not talking about that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's for the other channel.
Farms in the desert are affecting the oceans. Yes, because they just channel the water straight into the damn ocean.
Right. Because, it makes perfect sense. Yeah, couldn't be the cause.
2.5 billion years ago, eh?
Wrong channel.
That's a long, long time. Now, as far as scientific creation versus religious creation, let me just say this. A long time ago, there were people who were trying to kill the monotheists, trying to exterminate them. They even captured them all and took them into, quote, captivity. And these people thought that the world came from chaos that slowly took form over millions and millions and millions of years. And now it's called atheism. And I, as a scientist, refer to it as uniformitarianism. It's the presumption that everything happens the same as it does now. This is simply not the case. But this is not the video for that.
Nor the channel.
Anyway, there's a lot of different evidences that conditions were different enough in different time periods that the changes that we perceive as having been made would have been greatly accelerated. But I am not a 6-day creationist because, well, that's not what the freaking Bible says to begin with. So, yeah, well, if I wanted to just blindly follow a book, I would at least read the words in it. Anyways.
Reading, that thing that people have long forgotten how to do.
Yes, grass is good, but it tends to get overrun. And it doesn't provide much in the way of island building, whereas mangroves can actually build up your coastline. The problem with mangroves is they need to be cultivated on a massive scale so that the natural growth in the wild isn't relied upon. Basically, you can't go out there and just plant a bunch of sprouts and expect them to survive and become trees and the problem solved. You have to grow 4-foot saplings and go out and plant those. Minimum 4 foot. And those will actually take root and hold up and survive the next season. And, boom, you got a coastline again. Boom! There's clownfish swimming right behind my neck.
Hey, my.
Anyways. So I'm going to make a very important presentation about exactly why the Gulf of Mexico itself is the primary target for planet-wide ocean maintenance. Anyways. Elon Musk is a puppet.
Which is a damn shame too. With the amount of money that he has, he could really use it to make a difference. But he's not.
Just in case you didn't know, he made his fortune making what we now know as fake news websites. He literally made an app for that. He made an app that you could use to make your own freaking news website. And he made a lot of money off of putting reputable news sources out of business. But anyways. Yes, mass scale like the pod houses, but not built out of plastics or anything, built 100% like normal houses, just in a different way. Wood frame. Wood is God's building material, it's the naturally replicating crap that grows out of the ground that's, got varying hardnesses and strengths and tensions and flexibilities, and what more could you want, Wood. It's like poo, only when you hammer a nail through it, never mind. So, living walls, no, you're talking a little more expensive than things need to be. But you can get pretty productive without thinking of it as like a decoration type thing. Okay, if you make the form fit the function, you can still make it look good and have all of the productivity you need, but without the extra expense of having one of those like living wall type setups. More like a living frame, I guess. Subframe. But the pyramids are made of huge individual stones that we can't replicate. Sure we can, just people are lazy.
There are quote-unquote easier ways to do it now. Notice my quotes. Easier.
Yeah. Basically, the only reason why people don't think the pyramids could be built the way they said they were is because people don't understand just how technologically capable ancient people were. And I don't mean like digital useless technology like we have. I mean like, rotors and grinders and milling stones and pulleys. Pulleys, man. You can do amazing things with, let's see, how would you say, a transitor pulley. Like two different size rotating gears. And You know, just the assumption that people weren't metallurgists before they built the pyramid. That's basically all that's going on. Okay? If you just have metallurgy before that, then it's fine. So then all you need to look for is a part of history where that entire area was conquered and scavenged, and you can certainly find that just on my other YouTube channel. Anyways, but that's enough about the pyramids. Good memories. Anyways. Yes, we are a well-fed, overpopulated tank with an underpowered filter. Yes. All right. Man-made pumice stone. Interesting concept. I had an idea that involved pumice, but I forgot what it was. I thought of it while I was rinsing out my Seachem matrix media. So anyways, now about the Gulf of Mexico. Little bitty dot, way over in this little corner. Right? Well, you take into consideration where the sun's usually traveling when it crosses over our point of view here, where most of the photosynthesis occurs. Alright? The desert and rainforest line, right? Well, Gulf of Mexico's right smack dab in the middle of that. So there's a lot of potential for basically it being refugium. Or a stagnant zone. It's going to be one of the two. Alright? And the reason why it affects everything, you can't really see from this angle. But if I put this over here, and pull up the other side, you see that the ocean everywhere winds up flowing through the Gulf of Mexico.
And circles around.
So, whether it's going to be your stagnant zone or your refugium, let me see if I can make it not repeat itself. Should have planned this better before the broadcast. So, then the question is, why the Gulf of Mexico and not any other place? Why is it so important to have? Well, because of its size, really. It doesn't look very big on this map, but it's actually quite tremendous. Especially relative to the other, quote, gulfs of the world. Now, this is important because of simply where vegetation grows. Now, along the northern coast of Australia and in the Indonesian area, you have a lot of continental shelf where there's a lot of beautiful coral reefs. And the reason why it grows coral reefs instead of a whole bunch of plants and caulerpas and stuff like that is because of the incredibly high currents. I mean, extreme freaking currents going through all of those islands everywhere. Okay? And that is the world's live rock bed. And China needs to stop screwing up the flow in the world's live rock bed.
You're talking about all those islands that they're building out there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to say that directly, but okay.
Oh, I apologize. I mean, it's not like it's a secret or anything.
Now, the Gulf of Mexico, it doesn't have that big tidal cross sloshy flow through current. But unlike the Mediterranean, it still has a lot of flow in and out of it.
The Mediterranean used to be so pretty. Sorry. I know.
Can I maintain a train of thought?
Sorry.
Okay.
I used to snorkel there.
Okay. Now, if you look a little closer at the Gulf of Mexico, you can see how the water moves through the Caribbean and basically gets channeled by Cuba through this little pass and then over this area of continental shelf. And while the middle of the Gulf of Mexico is deep, the entire surrounding area is basically shallowish water, capable of growing massive amounts of caulerpa and macroalgae. And it's just this slow, lazy vortex type scenario. And when it's a dead zone, it's a very bad dead zone. And there's tremendous amounts of acidity and carbon dioxide building up, just killing anything that goes in, or in many cases above the water. But all of these different rivers, especially like the Mississippi, if that vortex that slowly circles around isn't caused to be crap by that, then this whole vortex becomes just like one of my sump systems where the water comes in, flows in a circle around some plants, and then goes out. And instead of the Gulf of Mexico poisoning the world's oceans by not only just the river flow, but the river flow creating this dead zone that perpetuates and makes itself worse, and then that exponentially shittier water gets slowly released into the world. It's kind of a problem. So we can have it one of two ways. We can have the Mississippi River and the other southern states with all their crazy Americans get into coastal and river pollution mitigation by making money off of it. Coastal restoration, the best solution for real estate, baby.
That's just
You don't want to invest in a beach house. Why? Because a hurricane, because of the insurance rates, But guess what? If that beach house ain't going to go anywhere, oh boy, what can I do to improve this area? Because my real estate's going to stay and it's going to collect value. Oh man, I'm in the money, honey. And all I got to do is, rocks and mangrove trees? Cool. How soon can you have my buildings up, Mr. Morris? How many would you like?
Just in the past 70 years, 75% of Louisiana's coastline has disappeared due to erosion. There are whole towns that are just gone because they're water now. And it's not just Louisiana that's happening to, that's happening everywhere else too. It's just, that's where we are, so I pay a little bit closer attention.
And now, the Black Sea, well, it's the Black Sea because it's what we're turning the Gulf of Mexico in. But it doesn't affect anything because it has barely just a little flow in and out through the Mediterranean. The Mediterranean could all turn into the Black Sea, and that would be horrible because the Mediterranean's beautiful. And there's rare species of coral and fish that can only be found in there.
The fish are so pretty.
Again, the Strait of Gibraltar isn't that big. So there's only so much that the Mediterranean really affects things. But the Gulf of Mexico, it's roughly the size of India, about the size of Saudi Arabia. It's pretty big. And this one river dominates the water quality. So if we improve the water quality of the Gulf of Mexico, what's going to happen is it's going to be capable of being seeded. I don't know if the macroalgae are still there, but we could just take our caulerpa out of our fish tanks and go start seeding it all over these freaking low coastal areas that have just turned to shit. And the caulerpa will grow. If and only if we get these people to start making money off of cleaning the water coming from the rivers. So anyways, now China has a great opportunity and I would actually see this as a possibility to broker peace or improve relations, at least between China and North and South Korea, because China actually isn't that friendly with North Korea, despite what you've heard from morons. But they need to adopt this strategy and have a geographically friendly area in which to do so, a massive amount of tropical continental shelf that actually doesn't suffer from tremendous cross currents, but also has a lot of polluting rivers going into it. Unfortunately, one place that's directly responsible for just a massive amount of phosphate induction is India. But there's only limited continental shelf around India. And the thing is, the water doesn't just need to go in there, just doesn't need to go across there. It needs to really go in and spin for a while and come out clean. It needs to take its time and flow and get cleaner and cleaner and then flow out. Now don't get me wrong, it's still doing a lot of good the more you go in decimated areas, where coral reefs have just turned to shit, and try to get some nice, long, flowing, good macroalgae growing. But the thing is, it's not the water that you need to stay, it's the waste. So even in coastal areas like, say, on the other side of Florida, or like in India, or even off the coast of China, well, to a point in China, there's the what is it? Not the Sea of Japan. Beijing City? No, I don't know. The one between Korea and fucking China. That one. These areas collect the waste. So that's what makes them, so important, is because when those rivers let out into those areas, it doesn't just get swept out to sea. Even if you had just miles and miles of Callirpa off the coast of India, that water isn't staying and spinning around in a perfect little circular gulf. See, this seems to be made to filter all the water that comes from the most productive food-producing area on the planet. How nice of God to make a world that was so well designed, and we still continue to screw it up. So anyway, it is getting to be way past my bedtime,
I'll turn it to
and
the
I
cat
just
bed.
wanted to make a general summary of the things I'm trying to do here, and why the Gulf of Mexico and the Mississippi River in particular are so important to the world's health. It's not the most polluted river there is, but it's certainly got an incredible amount of plant fertilizers and stuff like that. And the way it's shaped, the way the current flows through it, the pollution coming out of the Mississippi River and some of the other rivers, but mainly the Mississippi, can determine whether the Gulf of Mexico is that stagnant part of your fish tank that you just like don't want to disturb because it'll make all of your water nasty, or whether it's a refugium that polishes your water and allows for, you know, basically your auto top-off to go in a non-intrusive way. It's one of the most high-flowing rivers there is. And, you know, another wonderful thing about the design of the world is that two of your highest volume rivers, at least two, go into gulfs and places where, you know, they're not obstructing the life that can grow. So, you know, by the time the brackish water gets out of the Mississippi River and makes it to Florida, it's all pretty much mixed together, and the salinity isn't a problem. The shock isn't a problem. But if we don't take care of the nitrates and phosphates coming out of the Mississippi, it's going to continue to become this exponentially increasing cesspool out there in the Gulf of Mexico.
You got people going to the beach and coming back with flesh-eating bacteria.
And Florida is just a disaster right now.
Red tides are horrible.
Once the cesspool is completely self-sustaining, it's just gonna be I don't even know how to describe it. It's just gonna be constantly leaching poison Not just the river. I'm talking the entire water volume of the Gulf of Mexico is going to become toxic. And it's going to make these toxic swirls of water flow all around the world. And they're going to become these red tide plumes. And there's going to be ones that come from other rivers and stuff like that in the meantime. But this dead zone being caused by the acidity and the phosphate, nitrate, and sulfur buildup in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico. This is a dead zone. It's already there right now. As it continues to expand, it puts the entire world in jeopardy. And right now, that little bit of reduction in water quality has gotten so bad it's basically destroyed everything beautiful off the coast of Florida. It's been destroying the Great Barrier Reef slowly for years. And I think that Australia, being in a unique position as the caretakers of God's barometer of planetary health, the Great Barrier Reef. Why did God make corals so beautiful? So that we would know we were doing something wrong. I mean, way wrong.
Yeah, they're even finding that the deeper growing corals are dying off. And that wasn't a problem up until recently, like the ones that grow deep in the ocean.
And once the corals are dead,
The fish die.
the macroalgae are all going to die. Once the macroalgae all die, there's nothing to stop the entire ocean from becoming toxic. So they say flowers are pretty to attract bees to pollinate them or whatever. Well, why are corals pretty? To attract people to care for them. To care for the whole world.
Yeah, you gotta think once the corals and the plants die, the little fish that run from predators aren't gonna have anywhere to hide. Then all the little fish are gone, and then the big fish have nothing to eat, and then all the fish are dead.
Mm-hmm. But, oh, if that were the only problem. Oh, if the fact that we've basically exhausted the ocean as a food resource already, and the ocean is producing less food every year right now, already. It's already starting to produce less and less food every year, while the demands for food continue to grow. Fish are having to be grown aquaculturally. This is something that's seemingly inevitable. And even if the ocean was in full health, it would still be necessary just because of population growth. But the problem is, basically when the ocean dies, we all die. Most of the oxygen that we breathe has been photosynthesized where there is water, not land. We are destroying that process. And we're not chopping down trees. It's as if we're just watching the entire forest burn. Only instead of being on fire, it's being covered in algae. But we got to live up to our responsibility as caretakers of this great gift. Even if you want to look at it from a chaotic origins point of view, the statistical likelihood of such a place forming is surely 10 to the negative 125th. When you take into account not only the position, the relative distance, the chemical composition, the timing, but also the seeming indicators of fate and purpose that have guided us through our own so-called evolution. This is an amazing place that we have here, and we really need to do a better job taking care of it. Because well, I guess most people just don't realize when the ocean dies, it will begin to consume oxygen. It made most of the oxygen that we have. Most of the photosynthesis that ever occurred happened in the ocean. If the ocean is filled with cyanobacteria, cyanobacteria consumes oxygen. And those little places where you have dead birds that just suffocate and fall into the water, imagine that on a global scale. Imagine 2/3 of the earth sucking the oxygen right out of the atmosphere. All the trees on land will be of no use. They will become very healthy as we all begin to gasp for breath. And I hope that we do something about it before that happens. And I'm not sure that everything I'm proposing and planning is the all-in-one solution, or certainly not the only way to go. But there's a great deal of people out there who would be interested, who should be interested who could be interested but aren't. And I want to help them get interested. And at the same time, I want to set up a financial structure that allows me to not need them to be interested. Because this problem has to get solved. Period. Anyways, I appreciate you watching, and I appreciate your continued support. And I guess that's all for now.
Don't forget to click the thumbs up button and subscribe if you haven't already.
I wasn't forgetting to say that there.
I'm sorry, I was just trying to help.
Trying to think of an actual thing to say to close. But, oh well, so much for that idea. Yeah, stuff, what she said. Peace.